evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to my presentation. I'm going to be talking about species hybridization and compatibility. We'll get into exactly what that means a bit later. First of all, just thank you for bearing with me. My microphone is absolute shit. I will be doing my best. First of all, let's talk about what that means. What is compatibility? What about hybrids? Well, hybrids are made when two different organisms crossbreed, and that can happen due to genes. Genes are the fundamental building blocks of life. Humans have 46, that'll be important later, but for right now, all we gotta know is that this tells us exactly how our bodies are going to be made and what they're going to be made of. All organisms on Earth either have haploid or diploid genes. Haploids, they're on their own. Diploids are in pairs, and that's important. Now, I know it's Pride Month, and so I am so sorry. But we're just going to be talking about heterosexual reproduction, and that sucks. I know. I know. There's other forms of reproduction. There's meiosis. There's asexual reproduction. But just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to be talking about the straights. And as much as that sucks, we got to rein it in at least a little. We got a lot of ground to cover here. Now, what could prevent interbreeding? Because that is the crux of this, is species hybridization, interbreeding. What prevents that? What is the reason why any creature cannot get with any other creature? Well, there's quite a few. Prezygotic and postzygotic. A zygote is defined as when essentially the egg meets the sperm. Gametes, aka the sperm and the egg, combine to make the zygote. And so prezygotic barriers could be habitat or temporal isolation. If you just don't interact, you're not going to have a kid. Behavioral, again, with lots of creatures, they just don't get along. Mechanical, that's the parts, the equipment they got going on down there. And then gametic, if you don't have the exact right kind of egg and sperm, it's just not going to work. Now, postzygotic, this is after you get fertilization. There can still be complications. It might die. Some species have a 95% zygote mortality rate, and that sucks. Non-viability can happen. That's where the genes we just mentioned, the chromosomes, they don't line up in the right order, right? Your foot chromosome might be number 2 for humans and number 7 for fish, and so you can't make a mermaid. And also, the offspring might be sterile. A famous example of that is horses and donkeys making a mule. Horses famously have 64 chromosomes, again important, and donkeys have 62. They make a mule with 63 that cannot be divided in two, and because they have diploid chromosome pairs, they can't divide evenly in two unless they cannot make offspring. Sucks for them. You also got 98% minimum DNA. This is really important. Taking a look at just general examples of crossbreeding that we can look at, there's always at least 98% minimum DNA. And sometimes even that isn't enough. For monkeys, it's not going to work. It will never work. And Donkey Kong laments that. Here's some real world versions of hybrids. Probably most notable is the liger or the tigon, depending on which is the dad and which is the mom. We have the cama, we have the pumapard, the wolfen, and the sturtle. If these names sound stupid, yes, we are bad at naming hybrids. And they all have horrible genetic defects. We really should stop making these. In terms of, like human history, like have we ever gotten with something? If we look at our ancient relatives, actually, 1 to 4% of our current DNA comes from Neanderthals, which is an entirely different species that existed a few 100,000 years ago and that we interbred with. They are currently extinct, but their genes have made it into our DNA and are a current part of who we are. So there is a prerequisite for humans getting with other creatures. In terms of modern relatives, we can't get with any similar organisms these days because we fused our chromosome 2. Our chromosome 2 is a compound, currently, of monkeys' 2 and 7 chromosomes. And because of that, that would be like saying that what tells our brain how to be tells monkeys how their brains and their like triceps ought to be. And if you're going to try to put your brain into your triceps, that just doesn't work, even though we have extremely similar DNA. So for monkeys in particular, I'm sorry, it's never going to work. But obviously, There's got to be something deeper to this presentation. I'm sure you've already caught on I'm building towards something. Why should we care about this topic? Especially us connoisseurs of the server. I'll tell you why. It's actually very relevant. I want to investigate how breedable are monster girls. This is what the real people are wondering, right? This is the real data, the real shit. We're going to be taking a comprehensive look. We're going to be going through a few popular examples, hopefully. We're going to see what our chances are. Again, this isn't about having sex because that, you know, if you want to define it, you can have sex with just about anything. We're talking specifically about interbreeding. We're talking about hybrid compatibility. Can we make a baby? That is the crux of the presentation. Let's move forward. If you remember from the start of the presentation, 46 is a very important number, and that's because that is the number of chromosomes that humans have. In terms of differences in looks, that doesn't matter very much. Looking at real-world examples of butterflies and frogs, compatible species can look very different. It really is down mostly to DNA similarity, again, that 98%, and even more important is chromosomal alignment, because those are the bits of code for the body that are going to combine to make the new creature. So, looking at real world science, we're focusing on 46 chromosomes. We're considering the fact that a monster girl would be mostly human, partly animal. If that animal that they are part has 46 chromosomes, probably the monster girl also has 46 chromosomes. And in that case, they are very likely to be compatible with us. I'm not looking at anything supernatural. I don't have data on like Doulahan zombies, werewolves, vampires. I'm mostly looking at like creature, anthro girls, that sort of thing, like real world combinations with animals. So, with all that out of the way, with all the science set up, let us now continue to the baddies. Who can we make pregnant? Let's find out. Off the bat, Reeves muntjac, otherwise known as the slot-faced deer. This creature, surprisingly, is the most chromosomally aligned with humans. And it's just a weird little freaking deer from Japan. Canonically, this means that Shikanoko from that one anime is probably the most breedable monster girl that exists. We could absolutely get her pregnant. And that is great for anyone who's watched the anime and likes that. Like, honestly, great character. Moving on, also with 46 chromosomes, we have olives. You know, like the tree that makes the olive. Any sort of dryad that had olive as their base tree form, very compatible. We could absolutely breed that. Also worth noting, plant girls are built different because plants have a 75% more likelihood of interbreeding between different species than animals do. So a dryad, man, are they fertile. They could absolutely get with us. 100%. Look at that oil. Oh, oh, that oil. We also got nilgai. This is the kind of cow native to sub-Saharan Africa, which is all to say that minotaurs are on the menu. And looking at that physique, man, looking at that, I would bear his child. Damn, that's a man. We've also got the Carhiel hawaiiensis, which is a kind of detrivore that is used in a lot of scientific studies. They're mostly just bred to study radiation and genetic coding, and they eat trash, and they're kind of little shrimps. And I don't see any kind of appeal at all with this, but I did find one picture on all of the internet of an attractive shrimp girl. So, you know, if we could get that, that's maybe good, but we're stretching it here. And that are the only organisms that have 46. And now, if you're me, that's pretty disappointing, right? We could surely there's more options. So I wanted to stretch it a little further. You know, if a donkey can get with a horse across that two chromosome gap, maybe we can too. Let's look at creatures with 44 and 48 chromosomes and see if those monster girls would possibly be valid. Immediately a massive win. European rabbit and common hare both have 48 chromosomes, and fellas, I don't know how much more I need to say other than the phrase breeding like rabbits. Jesus Christ, Lola Bunny. Changed my life. We've also got the moon jellyfish. You know, slime girls are not really present in our world. We don't really have slimes. We have slime molds, which is a kind of fungus. But in terms of like a living creature, jellyfish is about as close as you can get. They're amorphous, they are malleable, and just look at the form. That is a slime if I've ever seen one. Given the fact that slime girls can also canonically like change their appearance, I think this is an absolute win we could get with a slime girl, 100%. We've also got the deer mouse. I'm not personally a huge fan of mouse girls, but I know that some of you are salivating over this GIF in the bottom left, and for you, that is incredible. Good job, King. We got a few plants as well. We got tobacco, we got potatoes, we got coffee. So if these specific dryads, other than the olive that we already mentioned, are more to your taste, you can get with this crop and or brain rot character. And then a generalist category, badgers, dolphins, beavers, Sonic the Hedgehog, all of them could bear our children, and that's excellent, especially if you're one of those kinds of people who looks at this character and thinks, wow, that's sexy. And that really is it for the two chromosome gap. Now, hear me out. I want more. I want more. I'm greedy. This isn't enough for me. I have something in mind that I really want, and I know that those of you watching this probably know what that is, given the server, given where we are right now, who we like. We can stretch it a little more, right? We can push the boundaries just a little more, right? Right? We can double it. We're gonna double it because they're monster girls, half monster, half girl. If at least half of them are girl, then that means that we can extend the range by twice as much because half and twice cancel out. So let's look at the 40, the 42, the 50, and the 52, because why not press our luck? I'm starting with the generalist here, just to knock a few out of the way. We got Panda, Spectacled Bear, Wolverine, Harry the Platypus is here. You ever wanted to fuck a gnoll? A gnoll from D&D, that's here too. And they can fuck you right back, because I don't know how much you know about hyena genitalia, but it's crazy down there. Moving on, we have another major win, the Transpecos rat snake. I don't know how many of you folks out there are men of culture, but the lamias, brother, brother, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know how much this is an absolute win for us. Oh man, do your research, please. Please. This is an absolute win. We've also got the Kit Fox. Need I say more? Need I say more? Kitsunes. Aria's like she is literally like a manifestation of love incarnate. That this is insane. This is another massive win. We are feasting. And then of course the feast continues because we have a fucking pineapple. We can screw this pineapple 7 ways to Sunday. It will bear our seeds. Look at those sexy, sexy legs. That pineapple, good goddamn, is our wife. And we love that. Now, we've pressed the envelope quite a bit, right? We've gone about as far as we can conceivably stretch the chromosome argument. And so, to go any farther than this, we really have to abandon all scientific merit and just pray. Throwing all of that out the window, let's look at the body percentage theorem. Because, you know, we've already determined pineapple girls are possible, right? I mean, if the pineapple's possible, surely, surely we gotta be able to have possibilities with other creatures, right? Surely we gotta be able to get with certain other beings, right? I mean, we know what subreddit we're a part of. We know what we want. Let's just do a little stretch farther. Just a little bit. It wouldn't hurt. The human body mass allocation versus monster differential features hypothesis. This is essentially a look at if we're considering body differences, which again, I said at the start, is not a major cause of concern when it comes to interbreeding. But if we're just considering that DNA potential, right, we're throwing the chromosomes out the window. We're saying their chromosomes are definitely in alignment. It just matters, do we have 2% DNA alignment? Human ears make up less than 0.05% of our body weight, and a tail, for example, an adult horse's tail, only accounts for about 1% of an animal's total body weight, especially if you don't consider the excess hair growing off of it, which can be trimmed. The actual flesh, vertebrae, and musculature is quite small. When you add this together, that is much less than the 1.9% variability difference that comes between most hybrids, especially the one we've already looked at, Liger and Tygon, which can have a 98.1 to 99% DNA difference. We are right in that sweet spot. What does this mean? It means that if we only have ears and tail difference, that is less than 2%. Our DNA is almost entirely in line. So if our chromosomes are in line too, surely then we should be able to get pregnant. I've included the furry chart here just as a reference. Right? This girl on the left, only ears and tail difference. I'm comfortable with saying that if we just consider our chromosomes are probably in line, 100% fertility rate. She will be pregnant within a week. We got stage two. In this case, we're starting to diverge into more animal features. In this case, the chromosomes would play a much larger part, where we would need to have more compatibility in that sort of horse-donkey ratio. By the time we get to here, it's gotta be Shikanoko or bust. Like, unless we're fucking that deer girl, she's not gonna have a child. And then all the way over here, you're just a degenerate. I'm not even gonna consider you. And I'd like to thank you for tuning in. This marks the end of the presentation. I hope that we've all learned something today. I hope we learned a lot about genetics, about the way that life is created and passed down, and about what's really important here in this life. And if you can carry that forward and make your dreams come true, Godspeed, Pilgrim.